Hello all and welcome back to another episode of the FRS Formula 1 Team, My Team series. We just got done with a race out in Zandvoort where we started at the back of the grid, taking an early grid penalty to make sure that we had a fresh gearbox for the next two races. This one, of course, is going to be at Barcelona in Spain, which is a very tough track to overtake on, so we didn't want to take a gearbox penalty and start near the back of the field in this one. And then, of course, Monaco follows that one right up. So we took that early penalty. We still showed a good race pace in the car there. Was able to work our way forward. Could have had maybe a couple extra points if we didn't get caught up by the back marker of George Russell. But let's get ready to head out to Barcelona, check the weather, and see if we can continue scoring some points this time around. It looks like weather forecast-wise, we should be expecting no rain this time around. I believe it is just going to be a bit cloudy in the qualifying session, and then it should be dry over the course of the race itself, which is good. One thing as far as setups go around this track, we do run a little bit higher downforce setup naturally than what the AI does, so it's already pretty tough to get a good run out of that final corner and down the main straight, the only real overtaking zone, and we are going to be lacking a little bit of straight line speed compared to them as well. So it is going to be more about our in-lap, out-lap pace that is going to be important over the strategy. We'll see where we qualify, if we can get inside the top 10 or not. Otherwise, if we are just outside the top 10, that's actually kind of an ideal position because we'll be able to run a one-stop strategy because most of the cars inside the top 10 will be running a two-stop if they have to start on the soft compound of tires. But here we are. It is cloudy but dry as we are heading out onto the track on those soft compound tires to set our first flying lap of the session. We're one of the first cars out on the track to set a flyer. So we should have a pretty good time. But a nice long run, especially from the start into turn one. Plenty of opportunity to slipstream, find that access road, brake right around there. We were a little timid the first time in, just seeing how the car's gripping up at this early stage. But flat out through turn three, really just kind of walk the car to the outside while you get on the power. Let the downforce carry you. And hard on the brakes into turn four as you get up the hill. Try and get on the throttle as early as you can. Let it unwind. Watch for this little hump getting on the brakes here. Easy to lock the inside front left tire there. And now back down the hill. Lots of elevation changes up and down here at Barcelona. Tough combination. The back end goes really light as you're coming through that left-hander. And then a tricky right-hander. A bit of a blend out in qualifying. It's going to be kind of a lift. Even a downshift on the heavy fuel loads at the start of the race. If you're feeling particularly brave and have the right setup, you can go flat through that right-hander. Big lockup into turn 10 there, not the best run, and of course another quick left-right little jink there that really gets the back end of the car very light, so you have to be very careful coming over that little hill, and then the chicane that makes it very difficult to follow and set up your final run. We run a little bit wide on the exit, but then flat out through this final corner. Open up the DRS and cross the line, and we've set the early fastest lap, but we were the first one to set it really, and Hamilton goes 2.2 seconds faster than us. But here we are, sun's starting to come out a little bit, 10 minutes left to go in this 18-minute session as we're getting ready and starting up our second flying lap. A Red Bull peeling into the garage. We've dropped down to 15th overall, but there is plenty of time to be gained off of that first lap. Turn one, we were pretty slow through, and same with turn 10, as you can see already. Picking up time on the Delta through turns 1 and 2, already to the tune of nearly 0.3 of a second. So hard on the power, trying to scrub as little speed as possible through that long right-hander of turn 3. No need to get it all the way up to 8th gear coming into turn 4. Just let it rev out in 7th. Get that extra bit of engine braking, and there's the lockup on that front left. But we are still about a quarter of a second up on our previous best time. Should be able to go down into the 1:16s as we were just outside in the 17.0 the first time around, and carrying speed through that right here. Really careful to avoid the bumps. That can really unload the back end of the car and get a big snap of oversteer or send you right out into the barriers. But huge time gain through turn 10 there. So much better on the brakes, not lucking up, not going deep, and carrying a little bit more minimum speed through the long right here. Not as good on the exit though, so we did lose a tiny bit of time through there. And now it's just all about getting the final couple of corners done. A little slow through the chicane, but sets us up for a slightly better exit than we had before. We're going to improve by nearly a half a second, and that will move us up into 12th place overall as we have about 8 minutes left to go in this session here. So we'll jump ahead as we set up for our final flying lap. We're out a little bit early, about 3.5 minutes left to go in the session. We're only fueled up for the one run, though. We've had issues in previous races where we try to go out for that final run and get caught up by cars coming out of the pit lane to start theirs and kind of compromising our lap. So we went out a little extra early today just to make sure that we get a better lap time in. A little slow through turns 1 and 2, but the track is rubbering in at this final bit of track evolution, so it will be a bit quicker. We should have the opportunity to gain a fair amount of time if we can just keep the delta fairly even, especially in the areas that really need that tire grip, especially the final sector. But big lockup into turn 4 there, and cost us a little bit of time, but we are up just about a tenth of a second. It's just all about getting on the power nice and bravely through that quick switchback. Now up the hill, turn 9, carrying the speed much better than our previous lap, and you can see that's going to gain us time all the way down. Find that late brake marker, turn in, very sharp little hairpin there. And now trying to just flick the car through, get the front end to stick, and carry it out, swing out. Back end kind of gets away from us getting on the power there, and that's going to compromise our run into the final couple of corners. We'd gotten nearly 4 tenths up, little slow through the first part of the chicane, but much better through the second part, and that's going to gain us time most of the way down to the line. We improve by another 3.5 tenths, and that's going to put us provisionally 10th place, so just inside. Right now, looking like we're going to have to start on those soft tires, but a bunch of other cars coming out to set their final laps.
We're ready for tomorrow's race, but before we begin, let's have a quick look at those who will be fronting the grid. Hamilton, Verstappen, and Sebastian Vettel. With qualifying complete, all that remains is the main event. We'll be live and uninterrupted for the Grand Prix tomorrow, so make sure you join us then.
And as expected, we slid out of that 10th place spot with the rest of the grid setting their final flying laps after us, pushes us down to 13th place overall, which is not a bad position to be in for the start of this one, so we have that free tire choice.
The Spanish Grand Prix has been a permanent fixture on the Formula One calendar for over 30 years now, and for good reason. Do you remember Michael Schumacher's absolute dominance here in that rain-soaked Grand Prix in 1996? That day he took his first ever victory for Ferrari, and we've had many more iconic moments since. The Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya then, a high-speed 2.89-mile circuit which demands an efficient downforce package and bravery on the part of the driver, especially through the blind right of turn 9, which we might just see taken flat this weekend. Anthony Davidson joins me again for the race today. Why don't we start by talking about Valtteri Bottas? That was a great win in the last race. Can they keep that momentum going this weekend?
It's always nice to come into a Grand Prix weekend on a high, but your expectations are based much more on your practice and qualifying runs. So it's the momentum from those sessions that they'll be hoping to carry into the race today.
With the race minutes away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. Lewis Hamilton lines up on pole position, and Max Verstappen lines up alongside. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Vettel, Bottas, Daniel Ricciardo, and Sainz, Perez, Albon, Norris, and Daniel Kvyat, Stroll, Oldtimer, Esteban Ocon, and Leclerc, Gasly, Raikkonen, Roman Grosjean, and Kevin Magnussen, Giovinazzi, Russell, Raghunathan, and Nicholas Latifi. That's it then, it's time to go racing as we head to trackside for today's race.
With Leclerc taking the grid penalty, we get a free spot. We're up to 12th as the red lights come up and go out, and away we go, getting off the line decently alongside the racing point of Lance Stroll. A big long run into turn 1, plenty of slipstreaming opportunities. We're going to see, though, looks like we're set up 2 by 2. We're going to have a look down the inside, 3 wide of Kvyat and Norris, trying to get ourselves into the top 10, but not really going to make it stick there. We have to back out as Lance Stroll makes contact with us side by side, but we have the inside for turn 3, try and use our extra bit of downforce and that grip, getting that overtake on, trying to get up that position. Norris and Kvyat still side by side in front of us, not really going to give us much of a door to get through. A tire differential between those two, so Norris sending it up the inside of Kvyat. We look to have him maybe try and follow him through, but not quite there. But we are up 1 position at the start now, so a good launch off the line safely through, and now it's going to be about trying to pick our way through the field if we can, and then of course waiting for all those soft tire runners in front of us to start coming in for their first stops. We're underfueled by about 0.6 of a lap, and we are going to have to try and save that throughout the race. It's a tough track to save fuel on in the setup that we've got it. So we are going to have to find some where we are going to be compromising a little bit of time, but running that little bit of extra underfuel at the start there. Gives us a little better launch off the line, especially since we're on those medium tires that aren't quite as grippy, and we had Leclerc behind us on the soft tires, so we wanted to make sure to hold him off down into turn 1. But here we are, first time coming across the start-finish line. We're in the full rich mix, the overtake mode enabled. We're going to see have a little peak down the inside, but you can see just how much, even with the slipstream, we start to lose out on that straight line speed. So they tend to, at the VMAX, have a little bit higher than us. And that's going to come into play once the DRS is enabled too, that they'll be able to hold on to that little tiny bit of extra top speed. We usually tend to close at the early stage of the straight, and then it kind of evens out as we get to the end. We got yellow flags already ahead of us, and it looks like on the minimap a blue dot running slowly and pulling off to the side of the road there. That is the Red Bull of Max Verstappen. So already a driver that's certainly set up for podiums is going to be out of this race. So it's going to be an opportunity to jump on board and take away that position from him potentially. So we'll see if we can continue to work ahead a couple with a top flight driver out of the race. That's just everybody shuffling up one position, and that actually puts us into 10th position at the moment. So that will put us in the points as it stands right now. And of course, we are running an alternate strategy. It's just going to be really about how we can race with these other medium tire runners, not lose too much time to the front runners that are on the softs, trying to open up a gap to find an area to pit into and not lose too much extra time, because you can lose lots of time around this track. It's so difficult to overtake around Catalunya that you really lose a lot of time in the twisty bits. Really, down the front straights are only overtaking opportunity. And unless you have a good 1.5-2 second time delta per lap, it's really going to be tough to make the overtake, and especially if you don't have the straight line speed to do it. So we'll see just how well we can do on these medium tires, running them long. We're up behind Daniel Kvyat. We've still got the racing point of Lance Stroll, and Charles Leclerc has yet to make his way through there. So we'll see if he's going to try potentially use those soft tires to get past Lance Stroll, or if he's just not going to have the pace differential quite yet to make that move stick, unfortunately for him. So we will just have to wait and see. You can see the rear wing now, though, flipping up as DRS is enabled, so we're going to get that extra little bit of straight line speed available to us. We'll see if we can set up a move on Kvyat anytime soon here. We do need to close right up onto the back of him. It's a tough balancing act, especially when you're running an alternate tire strategy, because when you're right up behind somebody, within that 1 second that you get that DRS help down the straight, you're in the dirty air and you're scrubbing the front tires a lot more. You're dragging them across as you don't have quite as much grip, and so you're wearing out the tires even quicker. So it's a tough choice to whether you want to drop back, conserve the tires over the course of your stint, or attack and try and make the overtake. And if you are attacking and unable to make the overtake, you can just be hurting your own race by taking too much life out of the tires. But we're going to jump ahead now to lap 5. Kvyat has fallen outside of the DRS range of Lando Norris in front, using those soft tires to open up that gap. That's going to put us with DRS on Kvyat, who does not have that extra bit of help that he needs to hold us off. So utilizing the slipstream, pulling to the outside, and then on the brakes into turn 1, he tucks right back in. We're able to fully clear him going into turn 1, and now we just have soft tire runners ahead of us. We're in 8th place, and everybody in front of us is on those soft tires, so they're going to be on that 2-stop strategy. So it's really going to be less about racing the cars ahead of us. We'll just kind of see where their strategy puts them out at this stage of the race, but more about what we can do to keep Daniel Kvyat behind us, because he does have that straight line speed advantage, and if he can stay within the DRS throughout the rest of the lap, it'll be costing us time as we have to defend from him down into turn 1, or potentially battle side by side with him into turn 1. But on the plus side, with those soft tire runners opening up about a 2-second gap, we are closing a bit as their tires will start to fall off. But we do have a bit of clean air to run in, so we will be able to preserve our front tires just a little bit more than what we were doing when we were still behind Daniel Kvyat. But you can see right around that 2-second mark to Albon and Norris in front. And it looks like on the minimap, a couple of cars already coming in. It looks like a Mercedes and a red dot of a Ferrari coming in. And Carlos Sainz is also in. Perez is in. So as we streak past the pits, Vettel is in, Hamilton's in. We are now running 4th place overall, with Albon, Norris, and Valtteri Bottas out in the lead of the race. So already starting to shuffle our way towards the front of the field and still holding about that 2-second gap to Lando Norris in front, although we are kind of taking about a tenth or so out of it from time to time, but still important. We have Daniel Kvyat in that Alpha Tauri just behind us, still within that 1 second margin, trying to close up enough to make an overtake. And unfortunately for Charles Leclerc, not able to really get himself through on those soft tires. That grid penalty, it's evidence of why we wanted to take it last week. We certainly were going to have to take a grid penalty for a gearbox this week if we hadn't taken the penalty at Zandvoort in the last race. So you can just see how much of a pain that just that extra couple of positions being pushed down the field is hurting Leclerc in that starting position. The Ferrari is pretty quick. Vettel is running up near the front runners and in a good spot up in the top 5. And Leclerc is no slouch of a driver, so it's definitely evidence why we wanted to take that grid penalty a little bit earlier. But we can see now Albon and Norris diving into the pit lanes, and it looks like also on the mini-map, Valtteri Bottas is in. We got 28% wear on that front left, so we still got some life inside of it, but that's going to promote us up into the lead of the race. So leading some more laps, you can see just how much Kvyat in our rearview mirror is closing down when he gets that DRS help down the main straight. But now we can kind of use our extra downforce to carry a little more speed through the switchbacks of turns 2 and 3 and try and get a bit of a gap. We really have to kind of push on and see if we can open up a 1 second gap. But we're going to jump ahead now to lap 14. Still have yet to fully clear that DRS zone. Kvyat right on that 1 second margin, and we've been called in to make our pit stop. So we should be coming in for a set of hard tires at the end of this lap here. And we have a damage indicator popping up, and it's that orange marker on the rear wing. We'll see what the issue is. It should be a DRS issue. Now the question is whether it's stuck closed or stuck open. If it's stuck open, we're in big trouble. If it's closed, which it feels like it's closed.
DRS is offline. The rear wing is down, so you can stay out while we work on a fix.
Yep, and there it is. It is stuck down, so we will not have. After we make our pit stop here, we'll be coming out into traffic and needing to kind of race with other cars. We are not going to have that DRS available to us to open up that slot gap in the rear wing to get that extra bit of straight line speed. Luckily, it's stuck down because we at least have full downforce. There have been times in previous career modes that I've played where it has gotten stuck open and you go into a corner and just have no rear grip, and it's very easy to spin and lose the car in that situation. But here we are, diving into the pit lane, getting hard on the brakes as we head to the pit limiter line, being very careful not to speed and pick up a 5 second penalty, as every couple of seconds is going to be very important for us, as looks like plenty of other action in the pit lanes as we are the new team. We're all the way down at the end, the last pit box. You can see with the mechanics with those white-walled tires, the hard compound going on, should be able to go to the end of the race fairly easily. We pop out just still in front of the train. We had Kvyat, Stroll, and it looks like Ocon pit in, and we're slotting in right behind Sergio Perez and Charles Leclerc, swinging around the outside of Daniel Kvyat. So just making that move stick, and that is actually very good for us because that is going to put a little bit of a buffer between ourselves and Kvyat for a little while. Leclerc and Perez on a faster compound of tire than us at this point, and of course we're on the hards just coming out of the pit lane, so they are not fully up to temperature. It's very easy to give a little bit too much boot of a throttle and spin up the rear tires when they haven't fully gripped up. So we are being fairly timid on the outlap to make sure we don't make any catastrophic mistakes, and that's dropped us already outside of that 1 second margin to Sergio Perez. But of course, we're not going to have that DRS anyway. We're still working with that issue on the car, so no harm, no foul there, and it's going to be just trying to keep Leclerc behind us. Once again, Leclerc on a faster tire, stuck up behind a car on slower tires, although even if he gets biased, we just need to not lose too much ground to him, because you lose about 22 seconds in the pit lane around here at Barcelona, and we just need to stay within those margins to the cars ahead, so that way when they make their second stops, we will come out ahead, and then we'll just have to try and defend for all we're worth. We are going to get to a phase of the race, though, we're going to have to be very careful with managing our fuel. We've been battling so much to keep and try and maintain that gap early to Kvyat to open up that 1 second that we really didn't have a lot of opportunity to fuel save. So we're going to have to kind of pick and choose our spots around the laps now. Instead of running that rich mix down the straights, maybe just the standard. Flip it to that lean mix just a little bit earlier, a little more lift and coast when we know that we're not going to get overtaken into a corner. So definitely going to have to bust out all of our fuel-saving tricks while trying to maintain as much lap time as possible. But you can see we're right about 1 second back of Sergio Perez now that those hard tires are up to temperature, so we can push on them a little bit harder and not worry about them losing the back end on us. But we're still, you can see that in the bottom right, our multifunction display, that orange triangle, the warning label, meaning we still have an issue with that DRS. So even if we're able to close up to that 1 second mark of Sergio Perez for the main straight, we're not going to have DRS to help defend from Leclerc behind us, who is all over our gearbox in this final sector, using that extra mechanical grip that those medium tires give. We're very slow through the chicane. We actually cause him to check up a little bit, but he is only 2/10 back of us. We are going to flip it into rich mix, dump a whole lot of electrical deployment. But we've got yellow flags ahead, and it looks like a car going slowly through the first sector. Leclerc, though, dives it up the inside. We get off the throttle very early, and Alex Albon out of this session. So both Red Bulls out, and Leclerc stomps on the brakes, and we have to take major avoiding action. Even though the incident was on the left side of the track, he just absolutely jumped on the brakes coming through there, and we had to make a very, very quick move to avoid plowing right into the back of him, as he could have really ruined our race there. But he's gone through, and now we have the hard tire group, Kvyat, Stroll, and it looks like Ocon behind. And so this will kind of be our battle for position. It's just a matter of how much pace we can maintain to stay with the group of cars ahead of us, those medium tire runners, just to see how far we can slot up when they make their pit stops. And of course, if we can keep this kind of hard tire group, this train behind me, a good opportunity for those medium tire runners to have to make lots of overtakes before they can even begin to attack me in this group. So leading this little train is good in a way, but we also don't have DRS to help us out, and so we will be under attack fairly frequently. But it looks like the DRS problem has been fixed. Ricciardo is into the pit lane, dropping back off there, so we have Kvyat and Stroll still right behind us. And it looks like the other AlphaTauri of Gasly, they see another dark blue dot on the mini-map, and then the yellow dot of Esteban Ocon there. So jumping ahead now, lap 19 of 33, still out on those hard compound tires. You see Perez, Sainz into the pit lane there. Leclerc has gotten about 4 seconds ahead, and Vettel is making his second stop. So we are now up into 5th place with 3 medium tire runners ahead of us. We're within the pit window, it would appear, of both Leclerc and I believe Hamilton may have already made his stop at this stage. But we are within the pit window of Leclerc. Hamilton, if he has not stopped, and it looks like we are inside the pit window of the orange dot, the McLaren, which I believe is Lando Norris up ahead of us there. So we will be promoted into a podium position when those medium tire runners come out and make their pit stop. And you can see on the mini map in the train is, or just coming to that right hander right below the 2 mark there, there's a red dot at the back of that group, and that is Sebastian Vettel, who has made his second pit stop, but he is stuck at the back of this DRS train. So it's going to be very difficult for him to try and make his way through to attack us and take that position back, which is why the one-stop strategy is so powerful around here compared to the 2-stop. If you aren't able to find clean air to really optimize your pace, then the 1-stop or the 2-stop can really harm you. But checking out the fuel mix, we've managed to save a good amount of fuel. We're basically nearly on target, and there is Bottas into the pits. He comes out, though, just ahead of us. He's into turn 1, but we are up beyond Leclerc and Norris, and that has promoted us into 3rd place overall, with the 2 Mercedes having already made their pit stops out ahead of us. So I doubt we'll have the kind of pace to catch up to those Mercedes drivers. So it's all going to be about defending from Kvyat, from Stroll, from Pierre Gasly, from Esteban Ocon behind us. And even Vettel has still been unable to make his way through the field at all. We are holding about a 1-second gap to Daniel Kvyat behind us. And it's just going to be about turning good laps the rest of the way. So we'll jump ahead now. Lap 30 of 33, jumping ahead 9 laps from 21 to 30. And you can see the Mercedes pair has absolutely checked out. Hamilton 30 seconds ahead of us. Bottas 23 seconds ahead of us. And Hamilton holding that fastest lap point, but we still have company. Daniel Kvyat still on the back of us within that DRS range. We're starting to move to the inside of the track down the main straight just to try and break that slipstream, not give him an extra little bit of toe to close up on us. And we've gotten our fuel mix down to where we need it, but our battery charge is starting to run very low as well, as we're having to use quite a lot of it on the exits of corners to really just get a good run out and hold off Daniel Kvyat, who's got that superior straight line speed on us on the current setup. We're carrying quite a bit more wing angle, especially on the rear wing. And so that is going to allow him to close up quite a bit more on those straights, but it's all about carrying good speed, recovering fuel where we can, recovering battery where we can. And you can see coming out of turn 9, flips open that rear wing, but it's a short run into turn 10 here. So not really an overall overtaking position, but it is a good opportunity if you get to that, 8 tenths, 9 tenths as you're about to break the DRS, then they get that little blast of DRS help. I mean, they can close up a good tenth or two and get back well within into the final sector, but you can see just how much it tightens up through those final few corners, and he's only a good 4 or 5 car lengths behind. But as we get on the power out of the final corner, we get that extra bit of downforce, that early grip as we come down. But he's going to be closing. You see just getting inside the view of the camera, closing, and then on the brakes, just not quite enough able to move us there. So thus far, we're able to hold him off as we fight for a podium on this occasion here. So still battling our way around this track. Luckily, dry conditions all around, not having to worry about any rain to mess us up. No extra pit stops are going to be necessary, and as long as we don't make any mistakes and go off track, we should be able to cruise our way down into the podium positions with only a couple of laps left to go in this one. We've managed to save the fuel that we need. We are running fairly low on the battery power, the extra overtake boost, but if it comes down to it, we will be able to defend rather robustly, but still maintaining a pretty close gap down into turn 10. You see just how little, even with the DRS, he's able to gain down that straight, just because that one's so important to get a good run out of turn 9, which is where we have an advantage by having that extra downforce. We can keep a higher minimum speed through turn 9. It's not really enough to reach that VMAX, but with that very long front straight, as we get to the tail end of it, that's where that aero balance comes into play, where he's really going to close it in. As you can see 6 tenths back, and now you're going to see that time tick down. He's down into the 4 tenths range, 3 tenths, but just about a quarter of a second back, getting right up on the back of us, nearly getting in position to make the move, but now in the dirty air. And we're going to carry that extra bit of speed through turn 3 as we are on the final lap of the race. Both Mercedes easily running a 1-2 out ahead, especially without Max Verstappen early in this race taking that retirement. So that's going to hurt his championship hopes. We have a bit of a lockup there into turn 4, I believe it is. And now we've just got to try and maintain, or turn 5 rather. And Lewis Hamilton comes across, takes the race win, unsurprisingly. But we've got Kvyat now 3 tenths back. There's not enough of a run out of the final corner for that final DRS zone, or the main straight DRS zone, to be an overtaking opportunity. So if we can just cover off, not pick up any oversteer, make a good run out of the final chicane, we should be able to come across the line and take some very solid points and put our car on the podium. A little bit of a lockup heading into the final couple of corners here, but Kvyat still hounding the back of us, but the one-stop strategy proving to be very powerful as we are kind of the head of a massive train of cars when we cross the line. P3.
Yes, we're on the podium. Good job this weekend. Great drive. Thank you.
They've done it then. A spectacular victory here in Spain and a massive confidence boost going into the next race. Tell me, Ant, how do you think they were able to deliver such an incredible result today?
I feel like consistency was probably the key today. There's being quick, and then there's being quick lap after lap after lap. If you can do that, you can capitalise on other people's errors without making many of your own. And that's an approach that can push you a long way up the field.
So after a magnificent race, we can now see the drivers making their way to the podium. Once again, it's the Silver Arrows who take top spot. A well-earned victory for Mercedes.
And a good result for us to put it on the podium. A strong drive. Definitely the right choice to take that grid penalty last week, even though we probably had the pace to battle up towards the front. Probably top 5 finish if we didn't take that penalty, but definitely worth it for the podium this weekend.
Let's see how the driver standings have changed. After today's performance, Valtteri Bottas secures the championship lead. Let's focus on the driver of the day. Anthony Davidson, who do you pick?
I have to give it to Old Timer. There was a lot going on all down the field, but they were the only one who I really felt maximised their potential.
It's time to see how things are shaping up in the Constructors' Championship. Mercedes continue to extend their lead. Meanwhile, Ferrari have improved their position. A strong weekend from them as they fight their way towards the top. After an event like that, who knows what the sport has in store for us next time? Be sure to join us again as we continue to bring you the latest excitement in Formula One.
Valtteri Bottas taking the fastest lap fairly late in that one from Lewis Hamilton, denying him the 26 points. But it's definitely Lewis taking the win has definitely closed up that drivers' championship between the two Mercedes drivers. Only 6 points splitting them now. So we've got a little bit of activity timelines to fill in, so we will continue to do that. Of course, prioritizing the second driver statistics, giving them little extra boosts here and there, but we also continue to improve some of our other departments. We can afford a power equipment upgrade. It looks like might be able to do 2 power department upgrades over the course of this one, although we are going to split it. So we're going to go sponsor event, so fundraising, and then a little bit of extra cash and a little bit of extra prestige. But we'll take a look and see what developments we can do. We have a couple in progress in the chassis and power unit areas, so we're going to take a look and see. We have a few options that we could go for in aero development, which has been strong so far this season. Been a decent turnout from our aero team. And of course we will continue to focus on the durability developments, because we need to make sure we're taking as few grid penalties as possible. I mean, surprisingly, we're rated as one of the higher durability teams, just behind Mercedes, which is kind of surprising. But I wonder if that just has more to do with the Mercedes power unit that we already run. So we'll go back to the power unit allocations, and we are going to quickly slap everything back to the Spec 1 for the practice sessions of the next race. So we are hitting the management phase of our power units, where we're going to be basically having ones we run now in the practice sessions. Once they get over 50% wear, that unit will become just for practice sessions, and anything under 50% will be available for races. And once anything gets over 75%, it's not worth running really at all. At that stage, we're not quite there, but our first ICE will probably be the first thing to conquer that mark, because you do get a significant loss of power once you're over that about 70% mark. You start to lose power at about 50%, and of course, we want to just continue to maintain what we can do. But we've got Monaco coming up next, so another track that's very important to qualify well on. We're going to change our tire allocation just for the softest compounds possible to give ourselves the most opportunities. It's a short lap around Monaco, so we should be in the short qualifying session able to, if we go out in, we should be able to get 4 runs in if we're quick on it. And of course, traffic can definitely impact that. And of course, there's the barriers of Monaco. So scraping a wall could cut one of those runs short on the first flying lap, so we would just come straight in, make the wing change, and go right back out. So we will see how that goes next week. But it's great to be on the podium. The car is starting to come around, and we look forward to the next few races. Getting close to the halfway mark of the season. 7 out of 22 races, I believe the schedule is. So we're about a third of the way through, and creeping up towards the midway point of the season, and really starting to round into form. But I will catch you guys next time as we head to the Principality of Monaco for a really interesting race, I'm sure.